Good evening and welcome to a very special Live. Yes, we're going back in time tonight. Time when things were fairly turbulent here in England. And in fact around the world. So tonight we're going to share some of the ghost secrets of the Tudors. And to do that we need to go back in time. We're joined by a strange figure there of the Hunter. Who exactly are you? You can introduce yourself.
Who am I? Dare you ask? I am Fahern the Hunter. But many people will actually say when they see me, I'm a bad omen. You yourself, I think you've seen me several times throughout your life.
Now we're going to come back to that as time goes on. So get ready to go back in time to one of the most famous dynasties in British and actually English history as we step back to the 1400s right through the 1500s as well. We're going back to the time of the Tudors. And before we look at the ghosts, we really have to understand how this powerful dynasty came to start. Well, lucky for you, I'm going to explain it because we're going to go way back now to the War of the Roses. In fact, that's even after your time, I believe, Hearn, is it not?
Depends whether you mean alive or dead.
Well, you tell me, I don't know. But,
well, it was after me being alive. Of course, I've been what some people might say alive for many years, just more of a supernatural being.
That's pretty intriguing. We'll have to come back to that. As always, you can comment if you want to on the show tonight. But let's get things started, as we should. Taking you back now to the War of the Roses, a time when a big battle took place, a fight for the monarchy here in England. And it was won by Henry VII. Yes, he took over the throne after winning the battle. And they say, well, people they know about him. But he wasn't the most known. We'll come back to that a bit later on. Let's focus on Henry VII and his first oldest son. Do you know who his first oldest son is?
Someone I should know?
Well, he would have been the King of England, of course.
Do you mean Henry VIII?
No, I don't. I mean Arthur, in fact. Prince Arthur was going to be the man to be on the throne. He was married to Catherine of Aragon, a very rich and powerful person, to take over the English throne. But tragedy hit home because he died at a very young age, which meant that for all those years, when Henry VII didn't care much for his kids other than Arthur, but he was wasted because he was gone and it was time for someone else to take over the throne. But let's first focus on the ghost of Henry VII. Is he haunts some places, right, Hearn? Hearn is still awake, I'm sure.
I am indeed.
I wasn't sure, you went a bit quiet there. Now, what we should tell you is when we look at Arthur, a very, I guess, well forgotten about individual, although he was maybe a king, he is on the very place he died, and we'll come back to that very place a little bit later on as we continue our journey at the time of Prince Henry, not Prince Arthur even, the first ghost we're talking about tonight. You said you're around during the Tudor times. Just fill us in a little bit about your history before we get to the Tudors.
My history dates back to King Richard III. Now, I used to have a life like yours, from those of you that are watching. I was very good friends with the king. We went on many hunting trips together. But one day, as we was hunting, a stag came out of nowhere charging towards the king. I done for the king and jumped in front of it. But it gave me a fatal blow to my chest. The king looked up and said, "Can anyone come forward and heal Herne?" But out of the distance, what some people would call a magic man came forward and said, "Take the antlers off," placed them onto Herne's head. "He shall come back to life." I did for many, many years.
Yes, now that's a very intriguing story. I'm sure Hernan Peter has asked.
It still goes on.
Yes, we'll come back to that. Calm down a bit, Hernan. I know you get a bit excited about talking about yourself and everything, but let's focus. Peter has said, "Why is Herne the Hunter on this broadcast? Herne, why are you here?"
I'm a supernatural being. I appear wherever I want.
Oh, well, that could even be in your own homes, ladies and gentlemen. We're not quite sure. So, we've talked about two ghosts. Let's now talk about probably the most famous of the Tudors. And Herne, I know you're ready for it, so tell us about it. The most famous Tudor ever.
You mean King Henry VIII?
Well, who else could I possibly mean?
I had several informants with him, and I warned him several times.
Did you indeed? Of what
Yes.
exactly?
He even tried to shoot me on one occasion.
Well, you can't blame him for trying, you know. Blame me for trying, you know, it's got to happen, isn't it? Sometimes we just have to take away these supernatural beings, as you quite rightly called yourself.
Well, as he took his gun out, tried to shoot me, it just went straight through me and I disappeared through the floor underneath.
What?
The look on his face was amazing.
Could you show us that now? Oh, okay, that's definitely a no, ladies and gentlemen. I did try. So, as you know, there's something pretty famous about that particular individual, which, you know, that's me. You're talking to me right now. We meet again after all these years. I look very different, I'm sure. You probably recognise.
No, because in that case you must be appearing as your younger self, which I've not seen for many, many years.
Well, you know, through time, that very famous one painting, which was taken after illness, everybody knows and loves. I wasn't like that until later on in life, you know. And I'm not giving you any reprieve either, I should tell you.
If it does help, there are statues of you all around the world. But in your latest days, when you was much, much more hideous.
What? Are you sure? That could never happen. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. But we'll come back to that, no doubt, very soon. And with that comes 6 wives. Yeah, 6 wives. I don't know that yet because I'm still quite young, as you quite rightly said. But 6 of them. Already mentioned, the unique thing about Catherine of Aragon was that she was married to Arthur, Prince Arthur, who died. And on Henry VII's deathbed, he said, "I had to marry her, even though she was my brother's wife. What's going on there? It's very strange. It had to happen." And it did, in fact, happen because, well, the marriage happened. It was all right, you know. We tried to have a few kids, didn't work out, and so you know what happened. We kind of shove her in a castle somewhere, and that's the end of that. And that came along one of the most other famous ghosts, and probably the most famous wife, Anne Boleyn. Have you seen Anne Boleyn before?
I actually warned Anne Boleyn.
Of what?
Wow, the last time she saw me was just shortly before she was beheaded.
That's just you warn her of this crime, of the stuff that she did.
What, witchcraft? As some people may call it.
But what witchcraft are we talking about? I mean, should we be worried right now?
Well, many people say she meddled many different things and stole the king's heart.
Well, you know what? Come to mention it, we have to look back at that. This is a time when the dissolution of the monasteries took place. The Catholic Church, we fell out with Europe, which I know you're all very good at doing nowadays still. Fell out with Europe, and Rome, in fact, where the Pope lived. He wanted to become separate, so I created my own religion, if you like, known as the Church of England. I believe some of you may still follow that today. All in a bid to get remarried, which was Anne Boleyn's idea. Well, kind of. She wasn't the only person that was to receive the end of days thanks to this charade. But when she was caught, she went to the Tower of London. You've been there, haven't you?
I have been there several times.
They let you out?
I'm a ghost. I go where I like.
Yeah, you do keep telling me that. Not quite convinced yet. Anyway, so she was sent to the Tower of London. Spent her final night in that hideous cell, trying to no doubt plot another way to escape. She tried to befriend many of the guards, but that was a failure, and she was led to the chopping block, where around about 1,000 people watched the beheading of Anne Boleyn. And it's said that Anne Boleyn haunts quite a few places, not just the Tower of London, and believe me, there's quite a few ghosts in that place. Many of them, thanks to me, to be fair. There's a lot of ghosts in that place. Anne Boleyn is said to be seen wandering around the building by many visitors who go there today. Well, you would go there today, but you can't, can you? Because there's a pandemic or whatever they call it. But normally you would go and visit and come face to face. Just imagine walking around those halls, that building, and coming face to face, because she's got to head back face to face with Anne Boleyn, who was executed on sight. But you know what, Tam? She doesn't just haunt there. No. She haunts her very own childhood home. See, she was a fairly wealthy person anyway, and if you go to Hever Castle, yeah, if you go there, she's also said to haunt there as well. But it doesn't just stop there. I mean, she haunts everywhere. She also haunts, apparently, so I've heard, Tudor House in Southampton, of all places. So her ghost, I guess trying to seek revenge, is seen in many places. Now, when we talk about Southampton, we should talk about Tudor House as well. Another well-known haunted place. And you see some ghosts, haven't you heard? No, because you've never been there. But you may see the ghost of the man, a good friend of mine, Sir John Daltrey, a very wealthy man. He was a merchant. He collected taxes. Yeah, you can boo that, but it had to be done. We needed money, you know. He collected taxes, and his biggest accolade was, of course, his construction company. He built one of the most famous vessels known as the Mary Rose, which is housed up, shacked up somewhere in Portsmouth. So I hear after many years of not being found. Now,
Didn't that sink?
Yeah, people call that happening, but you know what? You can still visit it. So I'm told when it's open, the Mary Rose Museum. I mean, that's got a few ghosts of itself as well. Now, as we go back to this story of Sir John Daltrey, a very wealthy man, he wanted to build a big house in Southampton. He came from Petworth. He wanted to build this big house to leave his mark on the city, or town as it was back then, of Southampton. And what he did was he married Jane Williams. What in turn, he had the three houses knocked down and was now known as Bugle Street opposite St Michael's Church, and had Tudor House, known as, well, I quite like the old name of it, King Henry VIII's Palace, as it was known in those days, and it stands there today as Southampton's first museum. So John Daltrey sadly died, and his wife got remarried. John Daltrey is still said to haunt the house today. So prolific is his ghost, is seen wandering the corridors, whispering in people's ears. Even dogs have become quite scared of venturing in Tudor House late at night. So fancy getting scared. Well, I've heard from company who said the tours events to do the ghost hunt on say October or something. They basically ghost boring and stuff. But as we said, there are many ghosts from the Tudor. We'll come back to some of the wives in just a while. Maybe you've heard some already. Can you fill us up with some more fantastic ghostly tales from the Tudors?
Well, for Tudors. Now, there's many ghosts, these stories to tell. However, you did mention the Tower of London.
One of the most haunted places.
The Tower of London is, of course, haunted by many people. One of them also haunts Winchester. Sir Walter Raleigh. Very famous ghost, so I'm told. But the Tower of London is also believed to be haunted by two princesses that were actually locked up, hidden away from the royal family.
For protection, I believe, is this not?
Yes.
And what happened to them?
No one really knows.
Oh.
There's many different stories. Some people will actually state they found bones of the victims many, many years later. Other people say it's just for rumour. But if you do visit there today, some people can still say you can hear their screams as you're walking around.
I know it sounds like this. So these two kids, they were for protection. They were alleged to be part of the royal family, and they simply just vanished, and no one ever found them. Is that what you mean by this? That's extraordinary.
It is indeed.
Now, let's cast our mind back now to some more ghosts. We've got kids that have gone missing. We've got executions of, well, the second of many wives, to be fair. The problem is, before she was executed, the other wife lived up somewhere else. So, and I kind of abandoned my daughters because, as you may know, well, I wanted a son to carry on this Tudor dynasty. And that was going to happen with the third one. This time, Jane Seymour. Now, this is a bit of a very, a very difficult one to talk about, you see, because out of all of them, well, Jane was my favourite, to be honest. And, yes, she gave birth to male Edward, but she died shortly afterwards, and I'm not sure that I really started to get over that. Maybe that's where some of the problems started to come in, and Savage Street started to start, I suppose. And Jane Seymour goes in Hampton Court Palace. Now I'm told, and am I right in thinking, isn't it? There's a few ghosts in Hampton Court Palace, right? You've been heard. Helen has died again, everybody. He's gone quiet, and we don't know what's happened to him. So when that happens, I'll continue by telling you that Jane Seymour's ghost is still seen lingering around the halls of Hampton Court Palace. But not just there, Windsor Castle. Now, I've heard that Windsor Castle is a pretty haunted place. In fact, by a butcher that was caught speaking ill of Jane Seymour. He was in a local pub enjoying a good old drink, which I'm sure loads of you aren't doing right now. I'm sorry about that. These things happen sometimes. And he was talking ill of Jane Seymour. It was a local butcher in Windsor, a very well-known butcher, just opposite Windsor Castle, where, ironically, McDonald's stands today. And he was caught having this conversation by a guard who reported him. Well, that was it. He was dragged to Windsor Castle, right up to the top of Windsor Castle, where he was tortured to death. And as he was butchered, excuse the pun, he heard the words, "You're a butcher." Now you know what it's like. His body was left to rot outside the top of Windsor Castle for everybody to see and no, never to cross up. And his ghost, I've just seen a McDonald's in Windsor. See a few spirits of things in there, I'm sure. But also in that tower itself as well. But heard, Windsor Castle, it's got a fair few resident spooks, so that's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's Windsor Castle I know very well. I've actually paid several visits to there, especially for grounds of Windsor in Windsor Forest. That's of course where my oak tree used to be. Yes, there's a famous oak tree. When I decided to actually take my own life, I found a nice big oak tree.
Okay, yeah, this sounds good. I didn't know you were much of a You see that on trees, to be honest, or was there some ulterior motive to this?
Yes, it was King Richard III.
Was it
Going
indeed?
back to my original story. Now, but other hunters accused me of witchcraft. The king questioned me about it. So I told the king, my life is my own. I marched outside, and that's when I came across the tree. And I said to myself, I will become the supernatural being that you all are seeing now. And that's when my original life ended.
And that was a huge shame, I'm sure we'll all agree, right?
No,
Yeah.
because people still see me, even today.
There you go. Now we're going to head down south this time to the former capital of England. It was known as, well, you know what it's known as before, it was Tudor times, wasn't it? It was Winchester. A very good place it was as well. That is where our next ghost comes in. It's courtesy this time of, well, another favourite ghost of mine, and you'll kind of find out why she's a favourite ghost. Elizabeth I. You want to cross there either. Be quite
She was the one that burnt my tree.
She what?
She burnt my tree. She actually believed that by burning the tree down and chopping it up, it would actually cause my ghost to disappear.
Well, it didn't because you're still here.
I know.
So, now, there was a man who was very well known in Winchester for all the wrong reasons. They called him a rebel, if you like, and his name was Thomas Pemberton. Now, Pemberton, he was a bit of an enemy of Elizabeth I, but that didn't stop him from getting people behind him. That's exactly what he did. But when you become famous for all the wrong reasons, you know you're destined for the chop. And that's exactly what happened. Pemberton refused to change religion. And do you know what? I don't like people who do that to us, Tudors. Refused to change religion. And as it happened, he was dragged across the city of Winchester, or town in those days, to a burning stake for his crimes of not changing. As he went up to the burning stakes, he went, "Oh, I think I will change religion." But I didn't believe a single word of it. So had him arrested, chucked in jail, and befriended by someone whose job was to get the truth out of him, and the truth they got. You see, Pemberton stupidly admitted he had no intention of changing religion, and that was enough to seal his fate, because he was dragged once again from his cell through the town of Winchester, and the locals, well, weren't that favourable of him then. The ones who didn't like him pelting all sorts of things at him, mud, spitting, don't do that, it's horrible, and all sorts of things. Cursed name, shame. He went up to the burning stake and he burned alive. And there was one request of Elizabeth I, and that was that you're not to bury Pemberton anywhere in the grounds of Winchester. But he is buried in Winchester Cathedral grounds, so that didn't quite work out. His ghost still seen around the back of Winchester Cathedral to this very day, charred, burnt, screaming in pain as he would have been as he was led up to that burning stake. We were quite a grim country back in the day, weren't we?
Yes, it was quite amazing.
And it doesn't stop there. Did you know also, speaking of Winchester Cathedral, Queen Mary was married in Winchester Cathedral, in fact. And her ghost also, she went on around for too long, but her ghost is also seen lingering around not just Winchester Castle, but other places as well. Hearn, hit us up with some more ghosty stories.
Where would you like me to start?
Well, you can start wherever you like, Hope, we don't mind. Give us a really gruesome one. Torture wasn't good, was it?
Torture. Well, there's many different types of torture during the Tudor times.
But
Now,
I quite like the idea. That's let's hear about the torture.
one of them was for thumb screws. Now you heard many terms where people will say to take them for thumb screws. Back then, they really did. It's a nice little clip, as you can imagine, would go on your thumb, and someone would slowly turn a little clog on the top until it would start forcing your thumb to shatter. Now, I've got many confessions out of people from that.
Well, were you scared of that? Sounds quite scary being tortured. I mean, I quite enjoyed watching people get tortured, but I wouldn't want to be tortured myself. Good for a bit of punishment. Now, another one for you now, known as the Haunted Gallery. Back to Hampton Court Palace again, where I like to throw corridors open apparently late at night and all sorts of other things, because yes, I haunt there as well as Catherine Howard, another former wife, who haunted area of Hampton Court Palace, simply known as the Haunted Gallery. That's intriguing in itself, isn't it? I'm sure you'll agree, Hearn. Haunted Gallery. Maybe you've been, if you're watching right now, maybe you've been to Hampton Court Palace and you've experienced the ghosts for yourself. We'd love to hear about them, wouldn't we? So here's something to share your experiences on this lovely video. Hearn, tell us more. I'm intrigued right now.
Intrigued about torture?
Well, ghost torture a lot.
Wow. You've got many famous tortures out there, including Iraq, where people would be tied to it and stretched. It was always very entertaining.
Yeah, well, I found these kind of things quite entertaining, but for a lot of people, I find it quite horrifying, in fact.
You could say they become a lot bigger after.
I believe that is a pretty mean thing to say, but yes, that would have happened, I'm guessing. We said before, Hampton Court Palace, Windsor Castle, probably some of the most famous haunted places you might know of. But there are many across the land that can be accredited to being haunted. Yes, Anne Boleyn haunts many places. We said before, Elizabeth I doesn't just haunt Hampton Court Palace or other places. She also haunts Windsor Castle and said to walk through one of the corridors there. And she's not alone, because one man who dared to cross me, no one does that. I don't want to mention his name. He was a close advisor, Cardinal Wolsey. Yeah. Wolsey seemed like quite a reliable man, someone you could trust and put a lot of faith in. But you know what? That faith was starting to turn sour after Anne Boleyn, I believe. He was something to do with this whole charade. So we got rid of him, threw him out. But he was ordered to come back to London. And mysteriously, he knew what was going to happen to him. Because what was going to happen to him? Choppy choppy is the answer. But, mysteriously, and I do find this rather a coincidence, he appeared to die on his way to London. He never made it and never managed to get choppy, which I'm very devastated about. But his ghost haunts the chapel of Windsor Castle. So the next time you go there, you see a rather ugly thing, to be fair, walking around with a clergy outfit on, looking rather miserable for himself, looking like he's made the grand escape of his life. That's probably Wolsey, not to be trusted, I can assure you. And to be fair, that happened quite a few times. Cranmer wasn't one to be trusted either. He's another one who got the end of days courtesy of his lies and deceitfulness. Actually, I think I kind of became quite gruesome towards that life, and you said, I don't know like this. Edward, we should talk about as well. Edward, who became king, not for that long. He died of tuberculosis, known as TB, a very hideous infection at a young age. But sadly, it was not the last for him. His ghost, in pain, he was quite young when he took over the throne, is still seen as well, haunting today. So I'm glad to hear that there are many Tudor ghosts. Good evening to Peter, good evening to Reese. Amongst many who've joined us, this intriguing look at the Tudors. The Tudor dynasty was to come to an eventful end. You know why it came to an eventful end? No, you don't, do you? So I'm going to tell you. Elizabeth I never got married, which meant she never had kids either, which meant there was no one left in line to take over the throne. And that meant it went to a new dynasty known as the Stuarts. But we don't want to talk about them. Forget about them. Let's go back to the Tudors. If you're watching right now online, tell us about your Tudor ghost experiences. How about Tudor World, which is up in Stratford-upon-Avon? That's a pretty good place, isn't it, for a few ghosts? What things have you experienced in that place? No, there's a Tudor experience, isn't it, I believe?
Indeed it is.
I've had paranormal groups come across many ghosts in there of some of the evil diseases that spread through this country. One of them during my time was known as sweating sickness. The name suggests you sweat, rather like me right now. It's like the whole room. You sweat. No one knew what this disease was, but it ripped through London, killing hundreds of people. In fact, I was very worried about it. I locked myself away for several days, in fact, to make sure that I didn't get it. But many perished in the awful conditions of London. So you might have heard that awful, awful situation. Those ghosts I see niggling around London today who died of that awful sickness known as sweating. But that's not the only disease, right? I believe there's another one, a very well-known one, in fact.
Well, there is of course a plague, but of course I will say for sweating sickness. Didn't you believe it was for plague because you didn't know what it was?
The plague, we believe, was because you sinned against God, and so therefore you got this awful disease. But the pandemic, a big pandemic, the biggest pandemic ever in history. And you go back to the air, ladies and gentlemen. And you don't want to know how many people were killed, but it was a lot. And as you said, it ripped through England again. And in those days, even in the medieval days, you had a red X on your door. That meant you had to stay at home. In your own safety and self-isolation. You didn't spread it to anybody else. But remember, the conditions were awful in those days. It was slum, it was disgusting, it stank, it was awful. And I wonder how many people got this awful disease. Which I believe hasn't gone, has it? No, it's that one. Good evening to Janice, by the way, who's joined us online. Lisa said to us, I think you guys are amazing. I'd love to join your one of your events. Oh, please do. We'd love to see you. Please do join us. Well, you know, when your COVID is taking us a little bit more, but we're back doing our events bigger and better than ever before. Right, Hearn?
We are indeed. Where you can see people just like myself.
Well, we're supposed to be trying to advertise it. You're scary. We don't want people to see. Actually, we do want people to see scariness, don't we? Anyway, so we're going to digress a little bit more. This torture that people came across in Tudor times was quite extreme, wasn't it? It led to many deaths.
Yes, there's many forms of torture.
But you said the screw thing, which sounds awfully horrifying. And what you think about that, I'm going to share Janice's experiences of Tudor World, where she said strange moving chairs with no one there to do it, they just moved. That's quite scary. Just imagine being in a place where a chair just suddenly moving. I'm just checking my chairs right now, make sure it's not happening here, because you never know when you might encounter a ghost. No, I think we're pretty safe. As far as I can see, it's pretty safe. Torture, yes. We want to hear about it, so tell us all about it.
So, you want to know more about torture in the Tudor times?
Yeah.
Well, for a serious crime, including murder, you could actually be sentenced to be boiled alive.
That sounds very nice.
Yes. Normally, it led to death.
Well, I can imagine it probably would. You know, I can't imagine being tortured as a fun affair for anybody, to be honest.
No, all for other one would actually be pressed to death, where you could be laying down, have a nice bit of board put onto you, and then have someone to the side, just put weights on one by one until you become very flat. You'll probably notice if you were laying there, your breathing would stop. It would get slower and slower.
Glad to hear that. I mean, it sounds a very nice affair. One of the people who knows all about that is 72-year-old Countess of Salisbury. See, she was sentenced to death by beheading in 1541. I can't imagine who was responsible for that idea. Oh yeah, yeah. And when she went to the execution block, she was told to kneel, and she refused in the Tower of London to do that. And instead, she ran from the executioner. He chased her outside the tower, and then, he hacked at her, hacked away at her, and that was it. And to try and hide things, he reenacted the whole thing to try and pretend that she was executed. And her ghost is still seen today, screaming, as you probably would be if you were hacked at in the Tower of London. And how about Lady Jane Grey? There's always grey ladies and grey ghosts, but she was called Lady Jane Grey. Now, at the time when the throne was disputed, Lady Jane Grey, do you know how long she managed to sit on the throne for as a monarch?
A few
Disputed over
days.
years? 9 days. 9 whole days. But again, her fate was sealed. Another one who was yet called the hideous Tower of London. So as you can tell, there are a heck of a lot of ghosts that dwell from the Tudor times. And right from Henry VII, who kicked off the dynasty with the War of Roses, through to yours truly, Henry VIII, who was here until good years, 9, up until I don't know when I died because you don't tend to know those kind of things. And when you said that, I looked quite different in those days.
Yeah, she was big, fat, and horrible.
What? I believe that may have been partly due to a fall off of a horse during a jousting competition, I believe. In fact, actually, they thought it was dead, but it wasn't. Speaking of
That's a
which,
shame.
well, that's a bit harsh. If you were Andy knows, I'd like, chopped off with that comment.
I was, but I was a ghost.
Well, I can't get chopped off with a ghost, can I? Anyway, so that horse accident, I survived, but the mood really changed after that. As some of the medication may contribute to that as well. But there you go. Also religious and lovely things. Did you know the fact of the day for you? When Henry VII died, it was kept secret for 7 days. Which is strange. But it was. Did you know that? I'm good at facts today. And that's
You
not
can
all.
see I am truly entertained by them.
Knowing that the Tudor dynasty could come into a problem when I was on my deathbed, no one was daring enough to tell me that it was coming. Well, one man did towards the very, very end, but before that, they wouldn't say. They were too worried about getting their heads chopped off. Anyway, the deathbed clearly said Edward must take over. And if that does not work, Mary and Elizabeth. But to be fair, fell out of favour for many years. I kind of dumped her into places for many years. But as you can tell, there are lots of stories. And today, in your days, you still love the Tudors. You watch programs on told, all sorts of things, because the world is fascinated by the dynasty of the Tudors. What do you think about that, hey Hearn? They talk about you, do they? No.
No, because I am before your time. Even though, as I said earlier, you saw me several times and I warned you to change your ways. That didn't
How did that
happen.
work out for you?
Well, I'm still here.
Debated. As we said, when it comes to the Tudors, the most famous dynasty, doesn't matter where you go in the world, they know who the Tudors are. There's a reason for that. And ain't just the 6 wives, not just the beheading of some of them. It's because, I don't just because we fell out with Rome either. was for many different reasons. Hopefully, we've shared some of those ghosts with you this evening. So let's round up on those ghosts we talked about. We talked about Henry VII, whose death was kept quiet for a long time. Today, we talked about his ghost still being seen. We talked about Prince Arthur, who should have been the king after Henry VII. He died at a young age, and, well, his wife was arrogant, and know what happened to her. Abandoned, also haunted many places. We talked about the most famous ghost, probably Anne Boleyn, who haunts, well, pretty much everywhere, really. In the house, the palace, Tower of London, where she's executed, right through Thomas Pemberton of Winchester, who's burned alive, right through to Mary, to Elizabeth I, and that was the end of the Tudor dynasty. But gone and never forgotten. So, hope you've learned something. I hope you've enjoyed tonight, because we can tell you we've got more theatrical stories, we've got more ghost stories, more things coming up very soon. But next week we're going to do it again with another theme in place. We're going to focus on the Stuart and the ghost of the Stuart. Now at the same time next Thursday. You're not going to be here, are you, Hearn?
I am everywhere.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, and we should remind you that we will be back doing ghost tours when we can very soon. We want you to stay safe, of course, that is the most important thing. And when it's safe to do so, we'll bring back the ghost tours, tactical, fun, scary as ever before, and some more tactical events as well as murder mysteries and many, many more. So please keep supporting us on our YouTube page. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, go on YouTube, look up Supernatural Tours and Events, and join Insta Sports. Go on there and subscribe, and there's exclusive videos coming very soon. We've also got a podcast, right, Hearn?
I heard some good things about it.
Only some, there's loads. Our podcast is Supernatural Edge, which also has its own social media channels. Check it out. It's doing well in all sorts of places: France, Germany, Australia, and the UK and America. Get out there. But please do look at the guest for as well. If you want to be a guest of that show and you've got something about anything supernatural wise, get in touch with us. We can talk to you on there as well. And that's not all. Make sure you join our social media pages at Supernatural Tours and Events, Southampton Ghost Tours, Windsor Ghost Tours, Portsmouth Ghost Tours. You get the idea. We've got loads of them. And again, thank you for everybody's support this evening. What would you like to say at this point?
I will haunt you all very soon.
Oh, yes, that sounds nice. Until then, everybody, stay safe, and we'll see you very, very soon. And if you are interested in the Black Death, Channel 5, I've got a 3-part series this Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all about the play of the Black Death. So it's worth checking that one out. And if you'd like to find out more about Henry VIII, you can go on Father Demand. They've got loads of programs. One just finished about Henry VIII on there as well, and his 6 wives. So check it out. Till then, have a good one. We'll see you very soon.